don't know if I'm riding a bull or doing my worst impression of Axl Rose, which is going to make sense here in just a minute. So, hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Jay Helms, and if you are new here, if this is your first time discovering the W2 Capitalist, we as the W2 Capitalists are here as a resource to help you and your family build wealth so that you and your spouse can spend more time with your kids, right? We are here to help you create a bigger nest egg and gravitate you toward building generational wealth that you can pass on to your kids, they can pass on to their kids, and so on and so forth, right? Before we get into today's episode, it's not with Axl Rose, but it is with April Crossley. I want to point you to our sponsor, Quest Trust. Quest is my self-directed IRA custodian. They were not my first IRA custodian, but they have definitely shown me that there is a night and day difference between those folks. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, if you have an old IRA, which April and I are going to talk about in this episode, but if you have an old IRA from an employer that you left that job a long time ago, you left that employer a long time ago, or yesterday, it doesn't really matter, and you haven't rolled that over into your current employer's 401k, you can actually take those monies, put into a self-directed REI account, and you can use those monies to invest in real estate, in businesses, and a lot of other different things. In my opinion, because I suck at stock trading, and it's a much more reliable vehicle than the stock market, right? So check them out today at w2capitalist.com/quest and set up your free consultation with them today. They're extremely smart people that can help guide you with setting this up and using those resources. And they're extremely responsive, which from where I came from was very rare, which was the reason why I moved, right? Anyway, let's get into today's episode with April Crossley. April Crossley is a noble investor who helps people grow wealth with real estate. A teenage mom, April graduated college, began a healthcare career, started a real estate business, and grew that business to retire at the age of 35. I am super jealous of that. She currently flips houses, owns rentals, and is a private lender. Matter of fact, we get into today's show. She talks about how she loans money out of her self-directed RA for flippers, and now she's getting into syndications and whatnot. Very cool. We just briefly touched the topic of that. Truly inspired by her story, right? She was 16, she was pregnant, living off welfare, and now she retired at the age of 35. Huge obstacles to overcome, right? Most of us aren't able to retire at the age of 35 when we have the normal path. So super motivated. Let's get into it. Let me bring April in. April, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you see that April is in a truck, and we were just talking about this, and she is living the RV life, right? You guys are on this adventure. So you and your husband, any of your kids, did they join you? I know you're a pet lover. I've seen you wear your dogs with you, right?
Yeah, my dog, just me and my husband and my dog. Yep.
Nice. How is it living in an RV? Like you go from this, because my wife and I have talked about this, and we have a 3-year plan to do it. Part of that plan is, number one, save with the money. The second part of that plan is, you probably just heard number 3 scream. She's a year old. Let them get a little bit older, let the kids a little bit older before we venture out. But how is it? How's the whole RV life? Like, how long have y'all been going? Like, you're originally from Pennsylvania, you live in and you invest in there. How is it transitioning from a house to a very small living space?
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, it's just me and my husband and my dog. My dog's like 100 pounds, so that counts as like almost a third full size.
That's
person.
Another human. Yeah, that's a big dog.
But we really like it. We lived in the winter in Arizona for 3 months. Every winter we'd go out to Arizona and live in it. And we were just like, it's so freeing. You're just like downsizing, getting rid of a ton of belongings. And the goal, really, your RV is there so that you can sleep and like have a place to sometimes cook, and that's about it. But it's to like go out and see the world. And it's just like it's very freeing. Like, we really like it. And it clears so much space. I just feel like the more clutter you have in your life, even if it's physical clutter, you have no clarity about anything. So sometimes I find, even if you're like at a crossroads in your business, it really helps to just like downsize and get rid of everything and bring clarity to everything. Yeah, we love it.
If you're listening to this, she's making like a drawing noise or a drawing gesture from her head. Like it's a mental clarity that you're talking
Yes.
about, right?
Oh yeah. Yep. For sure. For
So
sure.
how
Yep.
often do you have to, in your real estate investing, because you're full-time real estate, we're going to get into your story here in just a minute. I have no idea why I led with the RV question,
No, that's
but
okay.
that's where we're at. But how often in your investing business do you seek this mental clarity? Because it's a big piece of investing and trying to work and raise kids or dogs or whatever the case is. Like you get so much cluttered up in here, right? That sometimes you just need to, I want to say detox, but you need to unplug for a minute and go have a level set, right? How often do you have to do that? Because I personally need to do it more.
Yeah,
Right?
I feel like people should at least be doing it quarterly,
Okay.
if not more often. And I think for us, we never did it often enough, ever. And I just have these moments in my business where I would be like, why am I on this path? And why am I doing these things? Am I just doing it because everyone else is doing it? Am I doing it because I have an end goal in mind? And am I really happy? When there's times in my business, there's always going to be times you're super stressed. Like there's this false myth you're going to wake up and love your life and never have stress every day if you do what you love. And it's not true. You're always going to have stress. But there's times where I'm like, am I truly happy and following my purpose? And sometimes when I feel unclear about that and foggy and lost, I feel like I have to go reset myself. I feel like most people should do it quarterly. For us, we've kind of gotten to the point where we're like, let's just go for a year and see what happens. Yeah.
Y'all on a year journey right now? Is that the plan?
It'll probably be at least a year, maybe longer. We'll see how long we last. Yeah.
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 Can you hear the kids screaming?
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
They're supposed to be working their way outside, and apparently that was number 2. She does not want to go for some reason. But anyway, so what are some of the things that you do other than, because most people, it would be unrealistic if they're not full-time real estate investors, they have a full-time job. It's unrealistic for most people to say, okay, I'm going to declutter. We're going to downsize. We're going to get an RV, and we're going to take off for a couple of weeks. What are some of the other things that you've done to help you declutter mentally? Right?
Yeah, I worked full-time for a long time and slowly transitioned out of my job into real estate full-time. And honestly, then when I started flipping full-time, I just got myself another full-time job. I was just flipping houses. So, we can get into that too. But like when I was working full-time, my husband and I would leave our house. And when we were doing goal planning or we needed time to just get clear about what direction we were heading, we would go to a hotel 10 minutes from where we lived and stay at a hotel for 2 nights. And as dumb as that sounds, you're there without all the distractions of your house and laundry and cooking and this and that. And you just have one goal, and it's like, all we're going to do for these 2 days is get clear about this. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I just think for some people, they find a lot of clarity going on vacation, and vacation doesn't have to be like something expensive where you're flying out of the country. Just Americans do not take enough time off at all, like for themselves. And when you do that and you can relax and not be cluttered in your mind is really when you can find clarity about your goals. You're not going to find it by working more and digging more and working harder. You're not going to find it there.
You're right. And for most people, unfortunately, they only have the 2 weeks out of a year where they can do something. And a lot of folks, especially if you have kids, you go on vacation, and vacation is like more work than staying at home. So what you're talking about is truly just unplugging, kind of decluttering mentally. And I guess this is one of the things, and maybe you guys have experienced this on your RV trip. When I'm driving, when I'm by myself, which happens rare these days, because I used to work for a company where I was traveling all the time. No, they were day trips, but they were, I would get 4 to 6 hours of windshield time a day. And those trips would go by so fast because my mind was just elsewhere. I'd done the trip so many times, like I would leave my house, I would remember leaving my house, and then I would show up wherever I was supposed to be going. I was like, wow, what just happened? Like it was,
Yeah.
it was a very good mental declutter. Matter of fact, I kind of missed those days a little bit.
Yeah. And sometimes that's it. It's just a long drive. It's
Yeah,
meditating. It's reading a good book. It's taking a time out just to sit and like decompress and watch a movie. It's just that decompress, quiet time.
yeah,
Yeah.
just unplug, really.
Or hiking, just like people have to find kind of
Yes,
what works for them and gets them out into a place of peace where they feel more centered.
I love that you guys went to a hotel 10 minutes from your house for a
Yeah.
night, for a day or two, and just that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very neat. One of the things you said earlier about you know, working a job, even if you're passionate about it, if you love it, it's still work, right? I think
Yeah.
one of the biggest lies I've ever heard and convinced myself of is that when you know, the old saying is when you find a job that you're passionate about and you don't worry about the money, but you worry about the passion, that you'll never work a day in your life. And that is just such bullshit. I mean, that's not,
Yeah.
I am sorry. I hate to burst everyone's bubble who's doing that or, you know, holding on to that, but regardless of what you're doing, you're going to bust your ass to get there. The
Yeah.
other thing, and I apologize if you're listening, I need to stop cussing on the podcast. But no, I had this lady in the Facebook group send me a message, says, "Hey, just want to let you know that my son has now recognized your voice and he like listens to your podcast all the time." And I'm like, you know, I never thought there would be kids listening to this, and I don't want to
Yeah.
be the one to introduce them to some words and they go to mommy and
Yeah.
daddy and say, "So let's get off our ass and do something." And they're like, "Where
Yeah.
did you hear that word?" On the W2 Capitalist podcast. I don't want that to be the case. So parents, I'm sorry. I'm cleaning that up, but yeah, it is more rewarding to be passionate about. And I was talking to one of the members of the mastermind. I was like, you know, because we had our call Tuesday night, and I realized that it had been 6 months since I left the W2 world, and I was like, you know, I've never felt like I've been more clear about what I was trying to accomplish. I've never been more excited and motivated about trying to accomplish. But I've worked probably more on this business and in this business in the last 6 months than I worked for the last, I don't know, 10 years. You know, last night I was up to like 2:30 in the morning, which is really odd. Well, it's becoming a normal for me, but anyway, this is one of the biggest lies. So, you left your W2 job. So to go flipping full time. Tell us, what were you doing before and then transition into full time flipping, and then you realized, well, I just transitioned one job for another, and kind of where you're at now, right? So what
Yeah.
did you do before for a W2?
So I was a respiratory therapist. So I worked in
Okay.
a hospital with patients on life support machines, like ventilators, stuff like that. And I did that for 13 years, and I was super passionate about it. I wanted to be the CEO of a hospital, and I was in school for my master's degree when I started learning about real estate. I was shadowing the CEO of a hospital. Like that was my path I was going down. When I learned about real estate, I was like, well, I don't have time to do both. So I'm going to drop out of my master's program and keep learning about real estate. I read a book and I just got hooked, and I started taking classes and courses and reading, and you know, started flipping houses like very slowly. My journey was very slow because I was working full time. So I'm flipping maybe 1, 2, 3 houses a year. Then once I was flipping 3 houses a year for 3 years in a row, because we wanted to do the BRRRR strategy and buy rentals, because that is where you're truly going to grow wealth, is by buying rentals, not flipping houses. So we wanted to buy rentals. So I didn't want to just up and leave my job, because I wanted to show a track record. So to me, my track record was, okay, I'm flipping 3 houses a year for 3 years in a row. It's equal to my income I'm making in the hospital. So then when I left my job, I could show the bank, yes, I left my job, but hey, during the last 3 years, I've been making my hospital income via flipping. So really nothing has changed. And now I want to do a cash out refi on this rental. So it was very thought out. I didn't just like up and quit because I was like, oh, I flipped a house, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm leaving. It wasn't like that. And then I was flipping like 3 houses a year. And then we started flipping a little bit more. And I was just miserable, because it kind of goes back to what you said. I work harder than I ever did before the day I jumped ship and started my own business. I work longer hours, I work harder. Flipping is hard. No one talks about like how hard it is. And I was like, this is not freedom. This is not what I've read in all these books. Like, what am I doing wrong? So I sat down with a friend one day and was just like, I'm just like miserable, like talking to contractors, talking to the project manager, this, that, like everyone's pulling at me. I can't keep up. And I think I'm just going to quit. I said, I could go back to the hospital and like go back for my master's and make more money. And so she referred me to a mastermind where they kind of taught me how to be like the CEO of my business. So actually, when we started RVing, we started just going to Arizona for 3 months in the winter. And that was great because I had to leave my business for 3 months and work remotely. And it opened my eyes to how much I was an employee and not the CEO, because people still needed me. Like I tell people now, if you can't walk away from your business for 3 months and still have it running, then you are an employee of your business. You're not the CEO of your business. So I transitioned out of it, but I tell people I just went from working in a hospital full-time to flipping houses full-time. I just went from one job to another job. That's what I did. Yeah.
So I'm curious, did you go back and finish your master's degree?
No.
I
actually, and when you leave a healthcare job, like I had, you have a license. So then you have to decide if you're going to completely give up your license or do continuing ed so you can maintain it should you ever have to go back. And my mom was very accomplished and published in magazines and was like one level below a CEO of the hospital in her career. So I was kind of following in her footsteps. And I still remember the day I told her I was leaving my job. I'm like, I'm leaving my healthcare job. I thought she was going to pass out behind the counter. And she was like, you're not giving up your license, are you? And I'm like, yeah, I am. Like, I don't want my license. I don't want a safety net. If I'm going to fall, I'm going to fall flat on my face. So even now I'm like, I couldn't go back if I wanted to. Like, I don't have the ability to go back to that career. Yeah.
That's funny you mentioned that, because and this was hard for me to do, but so I got laid off COVID-19, right? May 1st of this year.
Okay.
And when that happened, I mentally made the decision. It's like, I'm not going back. Right. And so a lot of the stuff of the messaging that I'm putting out, I actually called out the executives of the company I was at because of how they handled the situation. I think it was total BS, the reason why they laid people off. Now I am thankful that they did it. I mean, it's not one of those things where I'm like, oh man, I wish I had my job back. It's not. It is the best kick in the butt that I've ever needed. But I called them out in this video that I put out, and then one of my coworkers who also so I got let go, and then half my team got let go, and it was almost about 10% of the company that was laid off. And he emailed me and he said, interesting video. I was like, yep. I said, I'm making it to where I will not go back. And he goes, yeah, I think you've accomplished that. So burn the bridges, right? Burn the bridges. Yeah. No one's going back, or burn the ships. Yeah. That's the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So not having so my parents are the same way, right? When I talk to them today, I think they finally understand that I'm full-time investor, and that's okay. It's very foreign to them. They've always been, hey, get a good job, work there, and then retire or whatnot. I wouldn't say they're very supportive of that. It's very much like probably your mom. You're like, you're doing what? You're not even going to renew your license. Why aren't you going to have the safety net? How did that make you feel when you heard that for the very first time, right?
Yeah, it was, everyone was telling me that I would be back. Like in your license won't expire for like 6 months. So you have 6 months to come back. You'll be back. And it made me, you kind of have to like block that out. So it was a mix of emotions when I left my W-2. I was scared. I actually feel like I went through a period of depression because I worked in the hospital with a whole bunch of other people. So I went to this environment every day. My friends were there. That's who I was friends with. I had stuff in common with them. we had all this camaraderie. It was like a family. And I left that. So I was kind of lost for like 6 months to a year, because I was like, I would go back to visit and I feel like I had nothing in common because I was starting this new path in life. It was very difficult and something people don't really talk about. So I had to make an effort to connect with people in real estate investing that I had something in common with, that I could talk to. So you go through a wide array of emotions, especially with family. And even now, I mean, like even with like private money and stuff, like my family doesn't really take interest in what I do. And so when they tell me things like, oh, our retirement account lost this much this month, or they're struggling with this, and I'm like, do you realize I make people thousands and thousands of dollars every year because they lend me money and I invest it in real estate for them, and you are my family and you're struggling at still no interest, like don't want to learn about it, hear about it. And that makes me sad. So it's everything from like anxiety to sadness to like, I'm just going to block that out and focus on the positive and people that believe in me. And I feel like they believe in me and they're supportive, but they don't understand it or take interest in it, you know? And sometimes that's hard. You have to find like a real estate family to connect with.
You do. And it's one of those things where, since we started, 6 years ago, it's mind boggling to me. Like people who I told, hey, 6 years ago, hey, we're going to start investing in real estate. I'll tell you what I'm doing. Very close friends, right? Out of my closest of friends, I had one who partnered with me on a deal. We're under contract now to sell that, and he's going to get, I think it's like 52% return on his money. So, a little over double of what he invested. And the rest of them were just kind of sitting back and they're just like, no, we're not interested in doing that. And family as well, right? They're not interested in it. So, and it's depressing, but you're right. You have to find your real estate investing family, which sounds like you found through a mastermind, right?
Yeah.
Which I think those are extremely important. Matter of fact, I just got off the phone with a guy who wants to join, or got off the Zoom with a guy who wants to join the W2 Capitalist Mastermind. And he said that, he goes, I just need to be around people who, and this guy, he flips 30 homes a year. And I said, well, first of all, you're going to be probably the most experienced flipper we have in the group. I said, second of all, if you need somebody to hold your feet to the fire and understands what you're going through, being a parent, having kids, wanting to flip, I was like, this is the group. They're going to do it. They're going to come in, bring you in with open arms, give you a big hug, and then they're going to kick you in the ass. Sorry, kids, kick in the butt. I got to work on that. I don't cuss that much, but when I get on here and we start talking about stuff I'm really passionate about, I guess it just comes out. But so what mastermind were you in? I'm curious. What mastermind did you join?
So I'm in Investor Fuel, which is like a flipping, it's more geared towards flipping. And I'm in a group. Is that
Mike Hambright?
Mike Hambright.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm in a group kind of close to where I live in Pennsylvania. And that one's more for syndication and buying larger commercial properties. And both are really like family. And people always ask me kind of, what's your biggest regret through your real estate career? That's what most newbies will ask me that question. I'm like, my biggest regret is not belonging to a mastermind soon enough, because I can't tell you the number of lows I have had in the past, because I felt so lonely, like I had no one to bounce things off of, or no one that understood being a business owner in this business. And my biggest regret, hands down, is not being part of a mastermind or multiple masterminds sooner in my career. Like I've had coaches on and off, but I didn't join a mastermind till 2 years ago. And I feel like I could have gone so much further, so much faster if I would have done it sooner.
Yeah. And I hear that constantly. And I encourage people, don't join just the W2 Capitalists. Look for other ones, because you're going to get something from each and every one of them.
That's true. Yeah.
Have a couple mentors, have a couple of coaches. You constantly got to be improving to ebb and flow with the market, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's very cool. And I've had Mike on the podcast before. That's why when you said Investor Fuel, I was like, that is very
Yeah.
familiar. So
Yeah.
I enjoy talking with him. He's got his I was about to cuss. He's got his stuff together. Yeah,
He
he's
does. Yeah.
definitely got his stuff together. I
Yeah.
kind of envy where he's at in his position, but he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you mentioned you were doing 2 or 3 flips a year before you went full time. Your very first flips, though, how involved were they? Right, because I at the end, you've done it for a couple of years, and after that third year or so, when those 2 or 3 flips are paying, your salary, I'm assuming in the position you were in, you were making close to 6 figures or a little over 6 figures. So we're talking about, you're making 35,000 per flip. I mean, those are big jobs, but is that where you started, right? Or is that you kind of built up to that? And I'm asking from a guy who's never flipped before, but is
Yeah.
curious about it.
So our average profit per flip is usually, it depends on the year. We track it every year. I think last year it was 32,000. The year before that was 35. In the beginning, we might make 20, 25. There's still flips now that will make 20, 25. I've done quick turns this year where we just buy it, put it right back on the market, and we'll make 15,000. And I'm like, whatever, I didn't do anything to it except clean it out. So it varies a little bit, but when I was first doing in the beginning, our average was probably around 20 to 25 per flip. And I honestly always steered clear of heavy rehabs, like structural or massive rehabs. I always shied away from those. Over the past 2 years, I've met a guy in my area who's phenomenal. He's a contractor, and and this is a great lesson for people who are starting in flipping. He knows all about structural issues and stuff like that. So now when I do massive flips that are like a 50, 60, $80,000 rehab, him and I did an $80,000 rehab together, I joint venture. And people think I'm crazy. They're like, you're going to split your profit with someone? Like, just hire people as contractors. I'm like, no way. This guy has more connections for big rehab and knows way more about these massive rehabs than I do. Like, I don't care about splitting my profit with him. Like, great. So he makes money and I make money. I'm paying him for his expertise. So now we don't shy away from the massive flips. But in the beginning, even in the beginning when I was flipping, I was doing like painting, tearing out carpet. I mean, we were doing like the
Labor.
dirty work.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's funny when people say don't split the profits. Well, you're also splitting the risk, right?
Yes.
So that's it's the other side of that coin that people don't realize.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the origin of your story, right? And talking about, which I found out in this book, Success Habits of Super Achievers, where you're featured with some really big names like Darren Hardy, Les Brown, Brian Tracy, and several others. But it goes into your story where you're 16, you're pregnant, you're on welfare. And I'm curious at that time in your life, because I was 34, 35 before I realized, 90% of millionaires get that way by real estate investing. Why don't I go jump on that train? Right.
Yeah.
But you started way earlier. And I think this goes to just how much smarter you are than I am, but you had a lot of stuff going on in your teens that I don't know, did it help you? Did it hurt you? Did it set you up for where you are now? Because, teen pregnancy is real, right?
Yeah.
Being on welfare is real, but you did not let that hold you back, right?
Yeah.
From going and getting or pursuing your master's degree. And then you're like, wait a minute, there's this real estate investing stuff. But let's talk about when you were 16, pregnant on welfare. What did you think the next couple of years of your life was going to look like, right?
So I think when I was 16 and going through that, I always was a straight A student. I graduated like 10th or something in my class from high school. Like, I was always smart and driven. And I knew that about myself. Like, I can probably do anything I want to do. And when I was going through that, it's amazing. Like, it doesn't matter how good your grades are or like what kind of student you are. People will still tell you, okay, but now you're 16 and pregnant. So now, you will be on welfare for the rest of your life. Nobody really tells you like you can still do anything you want to do. They just kind of shove you down this pathway of, oh, poor you, like you're done.
Mm.
I think how it shaped me was when I had my son a couple days before I turned 17, and I had to like wake up every day. My parents were supportive in the fact that they didn't kick me out of the house, but I still had to help pay bills. I had to pay his food, my food. So they were kind of like, listen, this is your life now. Like you need to start supporting yourself. And when you're ready to move out, like move out. So I had a lot of responsibility. So I remember waking up, driving him to daycare, dropping him off at daycare, driving to high school so I could finish high school, driving back and picking him up. So it made me grow up very quickly, and I had to become very responsible. And while everyone else was going to prom and going out drinking on their 21st birthday and doing all these things, I couldn't do those things. Like I lost that ability when I decided I'm going to take responsibility and like take care of my son and better myself. So I think it helped me because I had to put my head down and just ignore everything everyone was saying to me. And when you're that young and going through that, you lose a lot of friends. I didn't really have a lot of friends and a lot of things going on because I couldn't be involved in those things.
Yeah.
My life had to be, how am I going to better myself and how am I going to take care of my son and get back on my feet? So I think that really helped me because even in real estate, I don't get real wrapped up with like having a lot of friends and knowing everybody. I'm just kind of like, this is the path I'm on and this is what I want to learn about. And I keep my head down and I make a lot of connections and I join masterminds, but I'm very focused. And I think that I was just shaped at that time in my life to just like, you need to look out for yourself and build yourself up because no one else is going to do it for you. Everyone kind of wanted to like tear me down. So it took me to a place of I'm going to prove myself. And to this day, I say to people, even like I've taken on a bigger project now where we're working on this 100-unit building in PA, and my partners on that, I always say to them, I don't want you to hand me anything. Like I want to prove myself. Let me prove myself. And then once I prove myself, you can tell people I'm part of this project. But until I prove myself, just leave my name off of it. Like I just want to be the silent one in the background. So it kind of like, it made me a lot stronger than what I ever was before. Yeah. It really did.
Well, and also, you know, I mean, it's funny that when you were going through that in your late teens, your early 20s, you just said this, hey, I didn't have a lot of friends, you know, and fast forward to today, it sounds like you have very few friends like me. Yeah. And the friends that I do have are people that I do call my friends. When we get together, we talk about real estate investing and our next moves and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's interesting that you were forced to do that at an early age. Let me ask you something. Are you motivated when people tell you that you can't do something or you're not qualified to do something? Yeah.
Oh yeah. People think that's crazy, and people are like, you shouldn't let your motivation come from that. And I've listened to all different kinds of speakers and read all different kinds of books, and I'm comfortable with it, and I don't think it's a bad thing. And nothing drives me more than when people doubt me or when I fall flat on my face. That is what always pushes me to the next level. Always. Yeah.
Not afraid to fail. Right.
No.
Yeah.
No.
When I was in college, I decided I was going to walk on and play football. And my dad sat me down and he said, look, I just want you to read this. It was like a how they treat walk-ons. Right. And I mean, you are the scrum, you're the tackling dummies, right? You're there to get beat up by the starters, by the people who are, you know, on scholarship and whatnot. And when he showed that to me, his intention was for it to deter me. Right. And it did nothing more but make me want to do it then. Right. To actually go for it. And a year later, I started in the spring game, and then I quit after that. I was like, you know what? I think I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I'm going to go focus on the next chapter. I am curious though. You seem extremely motivated. You seem like you've always been motivated, but you have this domain. You have this business called Lazy Girl REI, but you're not lazy at all. So how am I? What am I missing here? What's the connection?
So called it Lazy Girl REI because people perceive me as lazy because now I say things like, I will never walk into a Home Depot or a Lowe's. I will not paint. I will not try and be an expert at anything I'm not an expert at. And that my laziness is my genius. That's what I tell people. Like, I've gotten this far because I know that I don't know it all, and I'm not the best, and I'm not the best on my team. So I feel like I'm comfortable and lazy with what my strengths are, and I just farm everything out to everybody else. So like, I have a project manager, I have someone that does sales and acquisitions for me, I have a contractor, and I rely heavily on those people. And I'm like, listen, my strengths are raising private money and doing marketing and working on marketing. Outside of that, I don't want anything to do with this flip project or this flipping business anymore. Like, my project manager called me the other day and was like, hey, this house is ready to go on the market. Did you want to see it before it goes on? I'm like, nope, I'll see it when it hits Zillow and the MLS. Like, don't care. I'm not into houses. People want me to be really into it and pick out flooring and paint. I'm terrible at that stuff. I'm like, to me, it's a business. I flipped houses to get out of my job. I'm still flipping houses because it gives me money and supports my bills in my life. And it also adds to my private lending bucket because we're passionate about private lending. But other than that, when people talk to me about flooring and paint colors and houses, I'm like, I don't really care. Like, I care about passive income, growing wealth, helping other people grow wealth. Those are my strengths. So I guess when I say Lazy Girl REI, I'm super hyper focused on what I'm good at, and I don't want to do anything else. Nothing else. I don't want to do anything I'm not good at. I'm very comfortable with what I suck at in life.
and I think that's a huge growth standpoint, right? Especially being able to trust somebody and allow somebody else to do it, but have your name on it. And I seriously doubt your very first flip or the very first 10 flips you were like that, or
Right.
were you?
No. And I tell people that, I'm like, that's where I'm at now. But when in the beginning, I did everything I could. I was like, can I hang this light fixture by myself? Maybe not, but I'm going to try. Like, can I pick out paint? I'm not the best at it, but I'm going to try. Like, I did what I had to do to get into the game. And if that meant ripping out carpet and painting walls, our rental properties, I can remember painting our rental properties at like 9:00 at night after working a 12-hour shift. Like, that's just, I did what I had to do because we couldn't afford to outsource anything else. But when I joined my masterminds, I learned how to structure my business to be able to afford to bring more people on. Yeah. So again, it comes back to the whole, who's doing what you want to be doing and how do you get yourself there? So stop. Yeah. People almost like enjoy the struggle, not enjoy it. They become comfortable in the struggle. They become comfortable waking up every day and saying like, I own my own flip business, but I'm miserable in it. But they do nothing to like learn how to grow and get out of it.
Yeah. And nothing annoys me more than somebody who just constantly complains about that. I'm like, you're the person who can set that straight, right? You are the only person that can set that straight. And quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing you make excuses.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We get into that sometime in the mastermind. I'm not as harsh. I'm with them in the mastermind in front of a group of people than I was just pretending to be. But it underneath, I'm trying to hold that person back and not just come out and say, well, slap them in the face. But anyway, when you were 16 and you had all this stuff going on, you had to be going through some self-doubt and like, oh, you got all these people around you saying, look, this is your life now. Your life is ruined. I'm using air quotes for people who are listening. Yeah. Your life is ruined. You're going to be always going to be on welfare. That had to impact you a little bit, right? As far as, man, I'm really good. But somehow you rose above it, right? And now you're to this point where, how many houses are you flipping a year now?
But somewhere usually between like 25 and 30.
Okay. And you, how many rentals do you have?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. We were holding about 40 units, but we
Okay.
sold a whole bunch because the market's been so good.
So good. Yeah. Yeah. And
So we
no, it's a
sold a
great time
whole
to
bunch.
sell.
So we're
No.
probably like only holding like 30 some units right now. And
Okay.
I won't buy anymore because we're only buying bigger. We won't buy anything small anymore.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So to this day, when you go take on a new project or you look at a new rental, do you have self-doubt now? And then, how do you overcome that?
Yeah. Tons of self-doubt. And I
Yeah.
think it drives
Which is
people.
crazy because
Yeah.
how many properties have you flipped now?
I don't even know. Tons. I never kept track or
Couple
count.
hundred?
And yeah, probably tons. So much
So
so it doesn't even faze me anymore. But
yeah,
yeah.
but you still have some sort of self-doubt, right? You start a new
Yeah.
project and all these things come up, like all these emotions, like, oh man, what if we don't do this right? What if we lose
Yeah.
money on this deal?
Always.
How do you get above that? How do you bunker down and just push through it and rely on, hey, look, I've done this. Get out of here, negative thoughts. Get out of here. I don't want to hear that crap,
Yeah, it's kind of like I just have to tell myself, you can go round and round in your head about everything that's going to go wrong, or you can just say, um, stuff will go wrong and that's okay, but I'm going to do my best to turn it right. Like, and I think once you reflect back on projects you've done, no project goes perfectly, and we have hiccups in every project. And I always have to just take a deep breath and say, okay, all you can do is fix it and move forward. I mean, I bought an 8-unit building 2 years ago. It's probably one of the worst purchases I've ever made. Like, it needed, the building was so old, and it's going to be a cash cow someday. But right now it's just like sucking the life out of me because all this stuff keeps going wrong with it. And I'm like, okay, I can wallow in self-pity about it, or I can keep making it better and keep moving forward so I can keep the building nice and keep raising rents, and it will be throwing off cash someday. So I just think you will go through times where you will wallow in self-pity. And that comes back to the mastermind, having friends in real estate that have been through stuff, that are going to be real and talk about the tough times they've been in, so that if you can't snap yourself out of it, they snap you out of it by saying, is it really that bad? Or can you turn this around? You're not always going to be able to pull yourself back up and like believing yourself. That to me is just a fact. I've been there where I've had to rely on other people that are like, yeah, but look how far you've come and look at how you could turn this around. So I think just mentally being able to reset yourself. For me, it's having great business partners, listening to great YouTube videos. That might sound crazy, but like I'm huge on like listening to books on Audible, having my go-to YouTube videos to like snap me out of my funk and like my mental defeat,
What's your favorite YouTube video motivational to get you
so
out of the
there's
rut?
I have a couple, but there's this video called the Contenders, and I can send you a link if you want to post a link like in the comments or something. But it's a great, just like short motivational video. My business partner and I listen to it all the time. There's this one line in it that says something like every opportunity is your last opportunity. Like, you have to take every opportunity that you can every day and like turn it into something. Yeah, it's a great video.
Please, I just think I just found it, but I want to make sure I get the right one. So if you can, when we hang up,
Yeah,
if you
I'll
send it to me, I'll definitely put it in there. When people hear that, there are going to be people hear it and say, well, I don't need to watch a video to get motivated. And I'll challenge them like, okay, how do you get motivated? I'm like, well, I don't need to be motivated, when really everybody at some point in time is going to find themselves in a rut, right? And they have to get out. It's just, and there's one that Matthew McConaughey just put out, which, by the way, I'm watching. Matter of fact, before we connected, I was watching his interview on Joe Rogan, because he's got a new book that's coming out, and he's a very interesting guy, but I enjoy watching those. So I have not heard of this one yet, the Contenders, but I'm curious. You said you do a lot of private money lending now. What's your criteria for private money loans?
It kind of depends. So we started out just doing like flip loans to people in my
Okay.
local market that I know. Now we primarily invest into apartment syndications. So we invest into larger stuff. Like in our area, a lot of times we'll just lend like short-term flips, 6 months, 12%, no points, to people that we know. And then in 6 months it comes back again, and then we'll do it again. Sometimes with self-directed IRA money. I have like old retirement accounts from when I worked
Yep.
at the hospital. I put into a self-directed. Sometimes with personal funds. So just kind of depends on the deal and who the borrower is. We look at a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Um,
Very cool. All right. 2 questions.
Yep.
One is going to be about the book, Success Habits of Super Achievers. In this book, you mentioned that you had this epiphany, right? You're working this job at the hospital. You're going for your master's. You pick up a book that basically says, you know, the heavens open, this light shone down and said, April, real estate investing is the way. And you're commenting in the book that says, this book has to be a lie.
Yeah.
What book was that? Do you remember?
The 1 Minute Millionaire.
The 1 Minute Millionaire. I don't know that I've read that before. I'm going to have to look it up. Okay.
It's a pretty cool book. It has like little short stories about people that basically like got into investing, and my husband had it and I read it, and it goes back to the whole like proving things wrong. I don't know what my problem is that I like to prove things wrong, but I read this
Me and
book.
you both.
I read this book and I was like, this has to be a total lie, and I'm going to set out to prove it wrong. So I'm just going to learn more about it and see if this book's a lie. And then I was just like totally sucked into the real estate world. Turns out it's not a lie. So
yeah, you and I are cut from the same cloth when it comes to that. So, all right, let's see. All right, I want to give you one of these crazy questions we talked about earlier. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
I'm going to look for one that's friendly and doesn't you to say,
cussing.
no, I'm not going to answer that. All right, here's a good one. Do you have any hidden talents that you should nurture?
That I should nurture?
Yes.
I don't know.
Do you have any hidden talents at all?
I don't really.
Or is this a better question for your husband? Like, you guys have been together for a while. He knows you really well. There's probably things that you guys.
You know what he would say? He would jokingly say, "He's like, April, you do a really good Axl Rose impression." from Guns N' Roses. So as dumb as that sounds, I do a really badass Axl Rose impression.
All right.
So I don't know if that's a great hidden talent that's going to get me really far in life, but I think people are like, if you weren't in real estate, you would make a really good comedian. So if I wasn't in real estate, I'd be a comedian. I'd do my Axl Rose impression.
All right, which
I will not do for you now.
No. I've got to see this. Is it just verbal? I mean, is it? I mean,
it's like.
Are you doing this?
Oh yeah.
All right, so do me a favor. Just step out of the truck and just do it for us.
No, you got to be on the right floor. You got to like have socks on and be on like a slippery floor so you can really get the Axl Rose. You got to get the Axl Rose sway. So.
All right, so when you get back to the RV tonight, have your husband film you do this and send me a video, and we'll add it to the YouTube. For you guys listening on the podcast, I'm sorry you're going to miss out on this, but you can come check it out on the YouTube channel. The Axl Rose comedian. That's funny. That's not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting to hear, but it definitely Axl Rose was not anywhere near the radar. Are you a big Axl Rose fan or 80s hair bands? Or
I'm not. Like, I mean, I used to listen to that stuff like back in the day, but I don't know why I'm obsessed. I'm just obsessed with like the way Axl Rose dances, like with the microphone when he's on stage. I don't know why. I just think it's funny. So
I said something the other day that I can't remember most of the time. I can't remember exactly what I did yesterday or last week. But if there's an 80s hairband song comes on, I'm singing every word to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. All right, Axl Rose. Excuse me, April Crossley. Where can people connect with you more? I know you're very active on Instagram and that's where you and I connected, I think, was on Instagram,
yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But where can more people find out more about you and get involved with Lazy Girl and all the good stuff.
Yeah. So my Instagram is April Crossley, and my YouTube is the same thing. If you just Google April Crossley, it'll come up on YouTube. And my website
Is there a video of you doing Axl Rose on there?
No, but there's going to have to be now because people are
Yes.
going to ask me about it.
There is. Yes.
And then my website is lazygirlrei.com.
Which is such an oxymoron for me, but I get it now. You explained it very well.
Yeah.
April, thank you very much for being here. Living the RV life, which I know a lot of people are doing these days. And it's funny because up until like I really started focus on nurturing my REI family and my circle of who I hang around and who I listen to, this would have been nuts for me to think, that you're doing this and the people that I already know are doing this, and the fact that we're trying to get to that point.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, we're waiting on our kids to get a little older. Also still have some reservations about doing that with three young ones, but my wife is determined it's going to happen. It's just got to get them a little older. But thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out and find a good spot that had really good reception and recording this. That's amazing. I'm humbled, and I appreciate that very much for doing that. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your time in Florida, and I hope you get to see some manatees.
Thank you.
On your trip.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you. You have a good day, Jay.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.
All right, guys, we just finished up with April. Incredible story to what she's gone through, right? A couple things I want to make sure you picked up on there. Joining masterminds, getting a mentor, huge part of her success, huge part of my success. I want to make sure that you're tapping into those. W2 Capitalist obviously has a mastermind. I'd love to be a part of that. If you are accepted, there is an acceptance. We don't just take everybody. You can find out more about that by going to w2capitalist.com. The other thing I want to make sure you picked up on is the use of self-directed IRA money is an incredible vehicle that you can use if you've left a job before and you don't want to transfer those monies over to your new employer, or you don't want to withdraw them without taking that penalty and paying the taxes on it. This is one of those vehicles that you can use to invest in businesses. You can invest in real estate. You can invest in waterfalls. You can actually buy waterfalls, which I talked to Nathan Long, who is the president of Quest Trust, and he talks about that in this video right here.